Even though I live close to the land, grow most of what I eat, and trust in the cycles of the seasons, there are signs that I can't ignore. An ache that settles in my joints and lingers much longer than it used to. Subtle at first, but becoming harder to turn away from over the years. They echo something that I've seen before, and I find myself wondering, what lives in the blood, and what's shaped by those quiet accumulations? The foods we repeat, the habits we adopt, and the signals we silence until they surface in the flesh. Wild plants and homegrown ingredients already make up much of the meals that I eat, but this time I want to go quieter, to let go of the foods that still carry that modern noise. Not because they don't belong, but because I want to know what I might hear in their absence. What shifts when every part of the meal is gathered instead of bought, when the land is not just part of the plate, but the whole of it. This month I'm taking part in the Wildbiome Project, a global experiment involving over 100 foragers from around the world, and together we're exploring what happens when we return to a truly wild ancestral way of eating. For 31 days I'll be eating only wild and foraged foods, gathered by hand, close to home, and guided by the seasons. The goal is to study how a primitive, unprocessed diet affects the gut microbiome, but for me it's also a deeper question. Can this way of eating interrupt what I've inherited? And can changing what I nourish myself with reshape the way my system responds?
I found an absolutely sick patch of Bisto, so I'm going to harvest some of the roots for making bread. Gorgeous mid-April day today, and I'm just out collecting some root crops mostly for the Wildbiome Project. So these are quite fleshy tubers underneath these big old root stores. Just be drying these out when I get home, powdering them down and using them as a bulk for my flowers to make kind of my version of a wild bread. All parts of the plant are edible, Bisto. The leaves are perfect now. In April, before it starts to flower in late May and June, depending on where you are in the country, but here in Sheffield you're looking around June for when it starts to flower. So I like to harvest the leaves before then. The roots have got this kind of twisted shape to them, and that's what gives it the name Bisto. It means twice twisted. Let me harvest a few and I'll bring you a bit closer so you can see. You can see that S shape there. So you can kind of see here how it grows from a tuber, and you get these individual plants, and the tuber grows a bit bigger as it gets older. Hello! Hi! Hello! Hello! Hello, you're beautiful! I couldn't tell you how many times that happens to me. Dogs often give my game away. Sometimes I'm hiding in the bushes and want to come running out of nowhere, and then the humans find me. So this is Bisto, and it's got this lovely kind of spade-shaped leaves. And this root is what gives Bisto its name, because it means twice twisted. And if I bring you a bit closer, you can see how this root has got kind of like an S shape. I just cut into it there a little bit. I'm saving the leaves in a separate pile. This is a great example of the twist, this one. They're really hard to clean because of this twisted root shape, but I'm going to get off as much dirt as I can in situ and then give them a proper good clean once I get back home. I just hit the lumps like this when they're a little bit too compacted, and it breaks up all the soil and makes it much easier to remove the roots.
Bisto is really easy to identify even before the plant comes into flower because of these really distinctively shaped leaves. They are broad and have a kind of heart shape to them with a blunt tip. You can see this really sharp, flat edge at the bottom here. This is a really good identifying feature of Bisto. When the plants are younger though, the leaves have a kind of arrow or lance shape to them. Their upper side is a dark green, while the underside of the leaf is usually a little bit paler. Here in Yorkshire, Bisto has a really long history as a wild food. It's the start of a local springtime dish called dock pudding, and it's made from these young Bisto leaves alongside nettles, onions, and fried up in a little bit of fat or lard, often served with eggs and bacon. You can eat the young leaves raw, but it's best to have these in small amounts because they contain oxalic acids. They're best cooked and have got a slightly astringent, almost earthy flavour that works really well in soups and stews or in omelettes. These twisted roots are starchy and were used in times of famine. They were boiled in multiple changes of water to get rid of that tannic flavour and then dried and ground into a flour. Bisto is actually a really powerful herbal medicine as well. It's packed full of tannins, which makes it incredibly astringent, and this astringency meant it was helpful after childbirth to help tone the uterus. Traditionally, Bisto was also used to stop bleeding, both internally and externally, so it was helpful for things like heavy periods, nosebleeds and mouth ulcers. People would make a decoction of the root and drink it and gargle with it or apply it to wounds. There is loads and loads of meadowsweet leaves growing here. These leaves are really medicinal and you can just chew on one if you've got a headache. It contains salicylic acid, similar to aspirin, and it can help relieve your headache. Flowers come in late summer, around late June, July and into August, and they have frothy, creamy white flowers that have got a really delicious kind of honey, vanilla, almond-like scent. Even these leaves have got a really delicious scent to them. So I'm going to be powdering them and using them as a sweet seasoning. So meadowsweet leaves have an opposite arrangement and this really bright red stem, which is a really great indicator of meadowsweet. On the back it's kind of much paler green. What a beautiful patch of wood anemones and lesser celandine growing right next to each other. And this is a little stream that's just passing through here, which is why these plants are absolutely loving it. These are both shade-loving and wet feet-loving plants. Wood anemones in particular, these take an incredibly long time to spread. Now this is only one little patch here. When you see it spreading through the entire woodlands, then you can be pretty sure that you're in an ancient part of the forest. This lesser celandine down here is part of the ranunculus family, which is also home to the buttercups. So the roots are tuberous. So I think I'm going to get my hori knife and harvest a few and show you what they look like. Ficaria verna, or lesser celandine, is a common little plant that pops up in early spring. You've probably seen it along river plains, shady hedgerows or stream banks. It's one of the first plants to flower, bright shiny yellow blooms that almost glow when the sun hits them. Hidden beneath those cheerful flowers and those lily pad shaped leaves are its edible tubers. They're small, knobbly, finger-like clusters tucked just below the surface. So you can see these little tiny swellings on the bottoms of the roots here, the tubers, and these are quite small ones. But they can get quite large and you can just boil them up and use them as a bit of a starchy potato substitute really. The leaves of lesser celandine are sort of like a frog's lily pad. Historically these were eaten as a famine food, but they do need a bit of preparation. Raw lesser celandine contains protoanemonin, a compound that can irritate the mouth and gut. It's the same compound found in buttercups, so this definitely isn't one to eat raw. But once thoroughly cooked, the tubers lose their toxicity and become safe to eat. The flavour could be compared to small potatoes or water chestnuts at a push. Traditionally they were boiled and roasted or added into stews, and even dried and ground into flour, which I think is what I'm going to do with mine. Another common name for lesser celandine is pilewort, and it's a name linked to the doctrine of signatures because the tubers were thought to resemble hemorrhoids and so believed to be a natural remedy for them. These days they're rarely eaten, partly because the yield is pretty small and the prep is a bit fiddly, but also because of the risk if they're not properly cooked. I've only ever tried them boiled and roasted, but I guess now feels like a pretty good time for me to try them in other ways.
This is what I've harvested, so I'm going to get this washed up now. Just found loads of pignuts, so I'm just trying to loosen the soil without disturbing it too much and see if I can get it out. Pignuts are around 6 inches below the soil usually. Look, it's a tiny one, but that is a pignut. And it's part of the umbellifer family. You can see that the leaves look a little bit like cow parsley in a way, but they have these lovely sort of ground nuts underneath that are a little bit like a cross between hazelnut and water chestnut. I snapped one in half as I was digging it up, but that is a bit of the pignut there, and I'm gonna dig around and see if I can find the full piece. Can you see that there as well? Aha! There we go. There is the other part of that pignut that I sliced off. So that is a decent size for a pignut. It's quite a good size, I'd say. And look, it comes out of the ground like this. It's like a little tuber. And you can just munch on those like you would a little hazelnut or a peanut. But they are quite delicious. And the problem is their stems are so fragile that they snap real easily. That's not even the one I was trying to find, look. But they snap really easily. And then it's quite hard to find where it came from. Oh, there it is. So there's my little finds. I'll only be taking home the big ones, and then I'm going to replant the rest of those because they're not really any good to me at that size. But I could come back next year and see if they've got any bigger. Oh, would you look at that? Check out all of these duck plants, which is a very good sight for me because I didn't get around to collecting duck seed this year for my flowers for next month. And I thought that I'd missed the boat really because, well, we're in mid-April now and I didn't think that they'd still be hanging on, but they are. And there's quite a few plants. So can you see those little round balls inside all of these capsules here? I don't know if you can see, I don't know if my phone's very good at focusing, but these are the seeds. So if I pull them off, you can see that it's got a lot of chaff, more chaff than seed, but if you look closely, you can see those little round seeds, and that's the dock seed. I'll be able to dry those out, ground them up, and powder them and use them as a flower extender. And I think I might be able to harvest quite a bit from along here. I feel very fortunate to have come across such a lovely meadow with so many duck plants, and their seeds still attached, which is lovely because I'm going to be collecting a bag full. I'm already on my way, about a third left to go, and I'm going to be grinding this down and making powder. I'll separate the chaff from the seed, so when I pull it off here I can see all the little brown round seeds still attached, and if I let the wind blow it can actually take some of that chaff away for me, and then I'm left with these little seeds which I will dry out, ground down and make into a flower extender to use alongside my chestnut flower, my acorn flower, and also my Bisto root flower as well that I collected a little bit earlier. I think I've done quite well there. I've got nearly a full bag.
I love it when you see a plant in all of its stages. So we've got the dandelion that's nice and opened, the dandelion that's gone to seed, we've got the little seed heads just coming, and we've got the one that's been fertilised, but the seed heads are still forming in this one. So what happens is when the dandelions are ready to fertilise, they're nice and straight like this. Once they've been fertilised, they close up until the seeds are mature. Once the seeds are mature, they open up again and turn into this little clock, and the seeds can disperse in the wind. And these little buds here are the unopened flower buds, and these are really delicious when you pickle them in a kind of like a brine or a vinegar, and use them as kind of massive capers. But I usually pickle a mixture of dandelion and wild garlic flower buds, and I find the combination of the two really, really nice in a jar together. Don de Leon, tooth of the lion, and not because it's got this lion's head flower, but because of the jaggedy leaves that are said to resemble a lion's tooth. Don de Leon, dandelion. The dandelion root, I snapped it off though, that was a poor effort. When you get the dandelion out like this, you can kind of steam this off like a pak choi, and it's actually really delicious. It's obviously more bitter than a pak choi, and these little buds here, again, are really great. Keep snapping these off, and the roots aren't the best in this soil here. I might just stick to harvesting the dandelion at my allotment because I tend to get really big roots there. Look at this huge stand of sloe. Let me get closer. These fluffy flowers. Look at them. They've got these long white stamens with the yellow anthers, and they just give them this kind of fluffy look to them. But these will turn into slowberries later on in the year, and this is a really great stand for them. And if we get closer, you can see that the flowers form before the buds. The buds are just starting to form here. Check out this one. Mutation, but it's not really a mutation. Look how beautiful it is. It's got double the amount of petals than what it should have. Cheeky. They usually have 5 petals. But look, they have way more petals than what they're supposed to. There's one there that has more, and there's another one on this fluorescence here that has more than it should. This one has 6. So this is actually quite odd to find this, which makes me think, has this been sprayed? Because herbicide would do something like that and cause mutations to the flowers and things. So I'm just wondering if this has caught wind. Yeah, do you know what I think's happened? I think this has caught wind of a herbicide from this Japanese knotweed patch down here. I've just noticed, and you can see that it's been burnt out here, and I thought that they would have sprayed it, and I think they probably have, because I reckon it's drifted over and caused mutations to these flower buds and made them open up into a few more flowers than what they should have. Can you see? Quite a lot of them actually. I've got too many flowers, too many petals. I keep saying too many flowers. They've got too many petals. They should have 5 petals to them, and many of them have got 6 to 10 petals, which is very odd. And this is actually making me think, now I'm not going to be harvesting my sloes from here anymore. Damn it. Can you see how there are lime green leaves and dark green leaves? And even dark leaves. The dark leaves are ivy, the dark leaves are lesser celandine, and these brighter ones, these are jack by the hedge seedlings before they start to come into flower or proper leaf shape. So these are the little baby seedlings. So this is how they start. I've got a ton of these in my garden, so I'm very well acquainted with how they look when they're babies.
And yeah, I absolutely love the taste of these now. They've got an almost like chorizo flavour, you know, I guess because chorizo have a lot of garlic in them. But I think they're absolutely delicious when they're this age. And when they're at this stage, I actually prefer them to wild garlic leaves. So this is what Jack by the Hedge looks like once it gets bigger. You can see these heart-shaped serrated leaves, and this one's actually starting to bud already. These little flower buds, delicious, a bit like sprouting broccoli with a slight hint of garlic. And these leaves are a little bit more bitter, only very, very slightly though as they get older. I do prefer the young seedlings, but these are still delicious, whizzed up in a pesto. I think I might harvest some stinging nettles while I'm here as well. This is a very lush patch. What a lovely wild garlic patch. I'm pretty sure this has been planted because it's all interspersed with some pendulous sedge and some yellow archangel and raspberry canes as well. So it looks like somebody has dumped a load of buckets or plants or something from their gardens. But I'm not complaining because what a beautiful, pristine patch of garlic. Now, I don't normally collect garlic from the wild because I have such a great patch at home, but these stems are really, really long because they've obviously been reaching up towards the light in this closed canopy. And these are going to be perfect for putting into jars and pickling because these stems are super sweet. And I do always pickle the buds as well. But when I pick them, I always make sure that I'm picking the complete flower stem because the stems are actually one of the best parts. And often I see people just plucking off the heads and throwing the stems away. And it's such a waste because these are actually really, really delicious. You can just chew on these raw. They've got quite a sweet, garlicky flavour. But my favourite is just to chop them into a size of a jar and just lay them upright and pickle them that way. And yeah, they are really delicious. So I'm going to be harvesting a handful of these, I think, to pickle later. And actually, I think I'm probably going to make a spring green kimchi as well. So I think I'm going to head back to the kitchen now and do some cooking. I am going to get back home, get to the kitchen, see what I've harvested today and get everything prepped. See you back in the kitchen. Right, so back home. I haven't sorted out this bag of greens yet, but I have pre-dried some magnolia petals that I got from a skate spot that me and Chris went to last week. And I popped these Meadowsweet leaves on the dashboard of my car while I was driving home, and these have already started to crisp up and wilt a little bit. Some violet flowers that I picked a few days ago, and I just let these air dry on the kitchen counter. I've got some pignuts, and then all of this flowering currant that I harvested the other day as well. This has all just been air drying, and this is a batch that I picked yesterday that's just starting to wilt. I'm actually going to make a syrup with these today for my retreats. These are my birch catkins that I've already started to crisp up. So these have not long been out of the oven. And all of the tubers from the Bisto that I need to wash and prepare. This is probably going to be a job that I do at the end because these will be all right in the bag for a day or so. And then over here I've got my lesser celandine and also my dock seed as well. And this is a big old dock fruit that I dug up from the garden. And I'm going to be cleaning that off and prepping this as well. So this is quite a lot to be getting on with at the moment. Generally, I don't do big harvests because I don't really like to spend too long in the kitchen. I like to do my cooking in little bursts rather than big batches, unless I'm doing it for a project or an event. And this month I've actually got both to prepare for. So next week on the 21st to the 28th, I'm going to be running 2 retreats in Norfolk. So I need to make all of the food for that. And this is what the flowering currant's going to be for. And probably some of the magnolia petals and these greens as well. Everything else is going to be dried and prepped and sorted.
for the Wildbiome Project next month. So I've got a couple of weeks to prepare for that. And whilst I have harvested a lot of things, I haven't actually prepared any kind of to-go snacks, which I really need because I'm going to be going on a couple of trips in May, and I'm going to need food that's kind of easy to take with me. So that is going to be a little bit of a challenge because I've got quite a lot to prep for the retreats, which is coming up first, and really I need to focus on that. So I'm going to crack on today with making some syrup, grinding all of the catkins down into flour, or just getting them into a powder rather, and making something with these greens, probably some sort of soup. So now I'm just dissolving some sugar to make a flour and currant syrup for my retreats. This won't be for the Wildbiome Project because I've used pure white granulated sugar, quite a lot of it, but this will be for my retreats to make kind of like cocktails or put into a vinaigrette, and also maybe diluting down a little bit with some juice and making kind of like a soak for a sponge cake. So I think I'll just let that cold infuse.
Our grandmothers wouldn't have called this wild food. The hedge and the field and the riverbanks, they were all a part of the pantry. But when did we stop eating like the land matters? When did we forget how to feed ourselves without packaging and labels and dates and signs to tell us what's good? I already turn to plants when I need support. Teas and tinctures and roots drying by the fire. They've always been a part of how I heal, but this time feels different. Less about treating symptoms, and more about asking what it means to be fed by the land itself. What if the answers aren't in what I apply or extract, but in what I gather and prepare and eat day after day from the soil that I walk on?